Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Anthony Biase, and today I'm going to be showing you a little bit of my editing process while I'm editing portraits. Now, I did a portrait session with my girlfriend Alyssa yesterday. We actually did a Instagram controls our photo shoot challenge. It was a really fun challenge. It's just like great to be able to incorporate my friends and followers on Instagram into actually controlling and dictating a photo shoot. Now, if you guys haven't seen that video will be linked in the description or up here somewhere. Please check that out. So without further ado, let's just get right into this edit. Now I already picked out some of my favorites from the shoot. All I did was just go through all of the photos and select which ones I liked, and I just rated them 1 through 5. Now, since it's just a simple photo shoot, all I did was just hit 5 on the ones that I like, and I'm on a Mac, so all I do to basically single out all those ones that I rated is just hit Command L, and that basically gives me just the ones that I selected here in library. So I'm just gonna start with the first photo, and we might just edit one photo for the sake of the video. If you guys wanna see more videos of me editing some photos, let me know in the comments and I'll be more than happy to do so. Let's get right into this edit and not waste any time. Cool, so I like this photo. I think her face looks great, and I just love these branches kind of kicking in, and I wish that there was a little bit more detail in the sky. Sometimes as a quick check, I'll take the highlights and just bring them down to see if there is, maybe even exposure. Obviously there was, and I remember there was some clouds in the sky that day, yesterday. So with that being said, I normally will just kind of punch in a little bit of the highlights if the sky doesn't have any detail. So I'm just gonna kind of bring up the highlights a little bit. Whoops, there we go, not too much. And normally when I bring up the highlights, I like to kind of bring in the whites just a little bit as well. Cool, so one thing I'm gonna take care of now, just because it's bugging me, is the actual angle framing. Sometimes when you're out on a shoot and it's cold and you're on level ground, you kind of just don't nail the framing, and it's fine because you can do it in post just like this. Now I just eyeballed it and I think that looks fine. All right, so going down the line, we are just going to hit it. Actually, I'm gonna grab the shadows and just kind of see what I like. I definitely like bringing up down here, like all the twigs and brush down here. So I'm gonna bring up some of the shadow to grab some detail from there. And then the blacks, I'm just gonna bring down to bring the blacks down in that detail. So we're getting detail out of the shadows and then bringing the detail back into the blacks right here. And we're also going to do some more later down here in the tone curve. Before we do that, I'm just going to go ahead and hit it with some clarity. You can get it very carried away, and some of my photos I tend to get carried away with this, so I'm going to keep this one pretty simple and just kind of bring it right around there. I think 30 is pretty good for this. I don't want to overdo it, and even 30 might be pushing it, to be honest, so we'll bring it to 21. This is why it's nice to kind of mess around with the blacks and shadows, because I can bounce the clarity all the way up and then bring the blacks up, and it kind of creates blacks and shadows, and it kind of creates this HDR look, which is exactly not what we're going for. So I'm going to bring this stuff back down and bring it around here. I think that's good. Okay, cool. So moving forward down to the tone curve. Now we've messed around with the darks a lot, so I might just bring it up a little bit just to kind of bring up the shadows again and then bring it right back down. Now when I do that, her face gets really contrasty and dark. I don't want that, so I'm gonna bring basically all of this back up to the point where the highlights seem like they're kind of right where I need them. Kind of like that. That looks good to me. Now I just toggle on and off just to see, make sure you're not doing any kind of stupid editing. Sometimes you can get carried away, so I'm constantly looking between the unedited version and the edited version just to make sure, keep myself in check, you know? Cool. All right, so moving forward down to the HSL, hue, saturation, and luminance. I'm not gonna mess around too much with this just because the image itself is pretty one-toned, and if you move one, it's gonna move pretty much all the tones in this. So I do like my warmer colors to have a little bit more of a red hue to them. So I'm gonna not mess around with the yellow. So I'm gonna mess around with the oranges. Obviously that's way too much. I'm gonna bring it just down towards the red a little bit. That might be, I think that's fine. Cool, and then the reds, pretty much are only really affecting her lipstick. So I can bring that down just to make the lipstick pop a little bit more. Cool. Now that might be a little too red because their cheeks right here are getting a little rosy. I think this is fine right there. Now I could mess around with her jacket. I'm not going to do that. There's really no point. I mean, if you're working for a clothing brand and they want the jacket true to color, you can just make sure that the color matches exactly what the jacket does look like in real life. Because sometimes photos, white balance and stuff like that can change the color of an article of clothing. I'm just going to mess around with some of the tones that are existing in this photo and just do a lot of like up and down just to see if I want certain things to be popping, what kind of catches my eye and what doesn't catch my eye. Again, this photo is pretty simple, so a lot of this stuff is kind of going to stay the same. So yeah, I'm just kind of showing you guys. Now, heading down to luminance, I do notice the more I look at it, her face does look a little bit more red from what I changed up here in the hue. Now, before I go back and change that hue back out, I'm just going to mess around with the luminance and bring the red and oranges up. And that'll kind of naturally desaturate it and kind of brighten up that image anyway, which is what I want. So I'll do that a little bit, and then I still think it's a little bit more red, and I think I actually am just gonna leave the oranges down there, or down at 0. So I've essentially really not messed around with any of this stuff. I'm more so explaining my thought process on adjusting all these things as I go along with editing. The luminance definitely added some punch to the warmer tones, but I don't know if I want it that punchy, so awesome. Cool, I think that looks good. Can kind of have that yellow match the orange tones and kind of add a little bit more orange saturation and red saturation. Yellow, cool. I think this looks good. Now looking at it more and more, I think I added way too much saturation. Cool, I think that looks good. Awesome, so now I normally don't mess around with split toning, but sometimes I'll just check out with like, you know, what certain things look like. I don't really dig any of this stuff. Now I could go with that bluish highlight look, but that's just really not what I'm going for, so I'm not gonna mess around with that. Sharpening, I'm not gonna add too much. Just 60 is probably fine. Profile corrections will just brighten up the edges of the photo, but for this, I actually want to darken using the paint tool or brush tool, right? It's brush tool. And I'm gonna actually darken this stuff over here manually. When I was messing around with exposure, I kind of thought it would look good if just this stuff was darker. It's kind of like dodge and burning in Photoshop when you're editing faces, kind of just darkening certain spots that you want darker and then brightening up some areas that you want brighter. But this photo is pretty bright, so I'm not gonna really mess around with adding brightness. I'm just taking away some brightness. Now, I would love to kind of get rid of this stick right here in Photoshop, and I may actually for the final photo, but I'm not going to for the sake of this video. Now, I will, on most of my photos, do some just basic facial editing. I'll definitely start off with just a face clean brush. This one's a little bit extreme, so I'm gonna bring it down. You can copy these settings if you want to. Pretty simple to make basically like the airbrush effect. I'll do it all over the chest as well, just to make all the skin look, you know, like porcelain-y. Again, a lot of people get carried away with this. I think it's just more so just a simple go over everything, and then if you actually hit option, you can take away. So obviously you probably just saw me go over, you know, like the mouth and the eyes, and I'm just gonna hit it with wherever I don't want it. I'll just take it away. So cool, so there's the before and after with that. And then now the eyes are pretty dark, so I'm just gonna go ahead and add a dodge lightning. Now these are all presets, but they're pretty basic, and you can kind of just check out what I have. This is just, you know, 0.5, just bringing up the eyes a little bit. All right, now looking at the face, zooming out a little bit. Sometimes you gotta just check out, you know, different angles and take a step back. I think that the face is a little bit too bright. Now, when you take the clarity down, sometimes it does darken the image. So I'm just gonna actually take the exposure and just leave it. Normally I have it brighter just because, like I said, clarity tends to darken an image, but I think it looks fine without it. So I think it looks good. I think this is kind of where I stand with this photo. Nothing too crazy, probably a lot of stuff that you guys already are aware of. So yeah, again, just a look into my brain as far as I'm editing these photos. I'm gonna get to editing all these and I'll show you all the before and afters at the end of this video. All right guys, I hope you enjoyed this video and this look into my brain as I'm editing these photos. If you'd like to see any more videos like this in the future, please let me know down in the comments. And if you aren't subscribed to this channel, please do so and hit that little bell while you're at it, and you'll be notified every single time I post a video. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.